feet in, then they move their feet out. They're like, to me, they're totally tempting him and making Giannis think. And it's not to say that, like, I'm sure Giannis is an incredibly smart basketball player, but when you're dealing at this level with a Nets team that I think is insanely bright, like, I think the Nets are really making Giannis think, and Giannis isn't best when he's thinking like that. Like, he's not as cerebral of a player. Like, he's more of a get me in transition.
Yeah, this was a great segue because the thing that the Nets do is something that we've all kind of complained about. I've never been mad at the switching, but I always felt like you can have other things up your sleeve, like try other things. And the Nets basically devised this switching defense, and it's working against the Bucks. It wasn't working great against Boston, but it's really putting Giannis in a precarious position because everyone's defending on the perimeter, and that's where he wants to start his offense. He wants to catch it on the 3-point line, on one of the corners, not the corners, but one of the diagonal pathways to the basket, and he either wants to take you if you're gonna zone him, he's gonna shoot over it with that unpredictable jump shot of his, but most of the time the option is I'm just gonna dribble drive, be 7 foot, have my wingspan, and just be stronger and dunk on you. And none of that is working. They're defending him on the perimeter. They're daring him to dribble, and you have to give Nash credit because he outcoached. I mean, he also had the talent, but he outcoached Brad Stevens, and then right now he's outcoaching Buttonholzer too. And the most important thing, and I really want to hear you respond to this take. The thing that we're missing when we talk about Nash is where we should start. We shouldn't start by saying, "Oh, he's former MVP, NBA legend that just got the job." We should look at him like, "Oh, who else was Kyrie Irving going to listen to? Who else was going to have an intellectual conversation about basketball that Kevin Durant would be engaged with?" I heard a funny story, and disclaimer, I swear this is important to what we're saying in terms of figuring out what KD's how KD's mind works. So major allegedly, KD went out on a date with a young lady who is of the ilk that performs sexual acts for a job.
Oh, yeah, I heard about it, yeah. Uh-huh.
They go out on a date. She asks KD questions like, "All right, what's your top 5? What's your favorite this? Or what color do you like? Or what's your favorite restaurant in New York?" And KD told her, "Nothing is my favorite. I don't care about anything." And the person who was recounting the story put up a tweet where KD said something to said something about, "I hate small talk." And a guy like Kevin Durant, you don't want to get a coach who's going to make him like not want to engage. But when you look at how interesting Steve Nash is, who else could you have gotten to express a game plan that he was going to listen to besides the guy who Kevin Durant himself sought after to cure some things or to improve on some things in his game? I just don't think there could have been a better hire than Steve Nash for other reasons than that. But I want you to respond to that.
No, I mean, I think you're totally. I actually think that's a great point. It was something that was that I think we talked about last summer, but hasn't really gotten as much talk recently. Is like there's something to just like having a dude like Nash who is as self-confident and chill and it seems like relatable at the same time. And obviously had a bunch of teams, specifically in Phoenix, that had a lot of different personalities and knew how to navigate it, and was like a couple of calls here and there away from like probably being a champion. And yeah, I mean, look, you are right. Like, this is the type of thing where if you play the season out 10 times, but with different coaches each time, like, a lot of times it probably becomes a disaster because, you just have like a lot of different heads screaming. And it's like, for right now, at least, it's clear that, like, and I'm knocking on wood, like, it's clear that they have some type of chemistry, and there is this higher level of basketball / curiosity / respect that that is going on there. And
Yeah, in the basketball conversation, it can't be a static one. It can't be one. It can't be one that's not where new ideas aren't accepted. It can't be one where your spirituality can't be a part of it. You can't put Tom Thibodeau in that job. Like they Kevin Durant might be fighting Tom Thibodeau by the end of the year. Kyrie Irving might just be like, you know what? I don't feel like playing basketball for Tom Thibodeau ever again. Like that type of guy, great coach, didn't deserve to win Coach of the Year. That should have gone to Monty Williams, and I think that everyone's embarrassed for their vote right now. But the Nick bias in the media is a real thing. You can't say anyone else is executive of the year besides Sean Marks. There's no question about that. And the hire of Steve Nash was shrewder than what we say, even from the perspective of there's this thing that D'Antoni does. I don't know how he does it. And I think I've told you this before. I realized it when he was the Knicks coach. He made players that sucked, that would go other places like the Nets and get there and suck. There's something about the way they play D'Antoni ball. There's an energy in the basketball. And that energy, you're seeing it in the playoffs. The ball just goes in. Whether it be, Jeff Green, Blake Griffin, White Iverson, Tyler Johnson, all those dudes are hitting threes, and I'm telling you, it has something to do with the Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, 7 seconds or less witchcraft.
And to go full circle back to the Bucks, I mean, the reason why what you're saying about the offense is so important is because the Bucks offense comes from its defense, and when you devastate the Bucks defense with what the Nets are doing on offense, then they constantly playing in the half court. And when you watch all those Giannis highlights from MVP seasons, and when they're doing like the montage of how the Bucks ended up being the 3 seed and Drew Holiday and Middleton and Connaughton, whoever you want to say, a lot of those clips are them in the fast break running because they probably got to stop, and then they pushed it. And when Mike James and Joe Harris and Landry Shamet, on top of the Nets' big time guys like obviously Durant and Kyrie and them, are making shots and making both easy and difficult shots, the Bucks are just not a great half court team. That's not the way that they're destined to score.
Yep. And here's the last part of this, and I'll leave this coaching comparison alone. Budenholzer has a lot of Mike D'Antoni influence in the offense they run. They're very pacey. They're very spacey as well. And you would think they did a pretty good job of surrounding Giannis with jump shooters. There's nothing wrong with that team. The fact that we're cracking that team right now has more to do with us than it has to do with them. In a regular year, they're a guaranteed Eastern Conference Finals team, and they'll probably go to 7, if not go to the finals. The problem with all of that is, I feel like it's the offense they run in Milwaukee is the offense we're practicing against, that we're running the switching defense against, and we know it really well. And you can't out D'Antoni. So I I mean, and of course, Budenholzer's system has a lot of nuance to it. It's different. It's not the same as D'Antoni's, but there are some principles that are the same, and it's like an open book to the Nets right now. Sam, do you think they win 2 games? And is there any chance of them winning 2 games?
I should be disqualified from predicting after thinking the Bucks were going to get game 2, and I was clearly like 50 something points off on the. On,
I said it too, though. I said it. I was right there with you. I was like, I thought that we would take both of them in Milwaukee, but I thought they would sneak one past us.
Here's the thing with like. I actually think what we talked about at the top of this pod almost kind of is what makes predicting, and if you're in the betting game, betting the Nets insanely hard. Is like
so hard.
Like you just have no idea if they're gonna come out flat, if they're gonna come out like they've already won this thing, if they're gonna like that Celtics game where I felt like Nash coached a bad game on Tatum, and like I thought they looked slow and they didn't look that interested. Like that's like something you can't like it's hard as a fan to predict that they're going to come out that way. But look, if they settle for bad shots and they're hot dogging the ball and all that crap, like then the Bucks are going to get easy transition points and the Bucks will get into their offense, which is why I just have like at this point I would feel dumb to bet against the Nets, but I also think like I could easily see a game where they're playing sloppily and the Bucks stay in it and you get the home crowd and home calls and KD or whoever gets into foul trouble, whoever it is,
Mm-hmm.
I think all of that is on the table.
That's what that was my next question coming for you was like, all right, so it's game 3. What can go wrong?
Yeah, as you said, you said it well. You basically said what's going on with the Bucks right now is not a Bucks problem. It's more of just the Nets being like great. Like right. I think the Bucks get back into game 3 and the series by the Nets basically being their own worst enemy, which is what we've said the whole year. Like when the Nets clamp down on D, they're an above average defensive team. And when they don't, they're the worst because defense is all and rebounding is all effort. Like,
but they play pretty good defense. If you ask me, I don't even have a bad word to speak about their defense. Like,
no, I agree. I'm saying like if they just get complacent and they look like how they looked in that terrible game, who was it against like Charlotte or something like that? Then like months ago. Then I think anything's on the table. But a lot of that is just effort. The good thing the Nets have going for them, I think, is they have a lot of guys on the bench who really look like they want to like knock some heads. Like Blake, like Blake and Mike James and all those guys like do not look like they're looking to take their foot off the gas. Like
no, these guys are out for fame.
Yeah.
That was a saying, back in the graffiti and breakdancing days that cats used to say that when people were really trying to go for it, that dude is out for fame. And these guys have an amazing opportunity, not just to be on an all-time, a great team that so happens to win the championship like that cheap championship in the bubble last year. But this is a team that can really just tip the first domino of being an all-time great team, like being a team that when they show up in other towns, crowds are at the airport. Right. They could be that. Oh, right. They could be that, and they may never be a superstar, right? I think Bruce Brown is going to be a player that plays in this league for years and years and years. He could turn into like Andre Iguodala light type of thing, make hundreds of millions of dollars, but it all depends on what happens this year. If they win it all, it changes everybody's life. And not that they didn't have great lives before, but it changes everybody's life.
I'm curious. Let me ask you a quick question because you've had more time around like agents and knowing like the gossip with players and celebs, whatever it is, if is